Good evening, everyone. Thanks for another fun-filled night here on the set of Spirit Connections every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Yes, and we have yet another show. I'm still recovering from last week's show. Steph, how did Susie's food?
Susie's food
How was it?
Great.
Delicious.
Yes.
Delicious. I was craving, and all I've been doing is talking about that watermelon smoothie.
I made one. So they were at my house. You should have come over.
I know. I don't remember the invite, but maybe next.
It was there.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time you can come. It takes 5 minutes to make.
Okay, I'll come over anytime.
I think you should.
So, this week we have the guys from RISEUP Paranormal on. Ken DeCosta and Dave DeCosta. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for being our host again. It's nice to be back.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I feel like there's so much that has happened.
We are
since
too.
The last time.
Watermelon smoothie. That's.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I had to bring it up because
What's the
I
deal?
kept on thinking about it the whole week. We had Susie Falco on last week, and she is all about good health, and so everything is. The
Watermelon
gluten-free, high-protein type of
Yeah.
diet. So we actually filmed in the kitchen, and we had about 4 different things going on. Never mind 3 drinks, was it? 3 different types of drinks? Yep, the coffee, the smoothie,
Yes, I
and
couldn't
then
remember
the
now
spritzer.
if it was 3, but
I'm
yeah.
hoping that the whole health thing would even work for us. I'm not sure. It might be a shock to our bodies. But.
I'm telling you, it was amazing. She was this past Sunday she was on WBZ Channel 4 in Boston,
Excellent.
out of Boston.
Wow.
So hopefully that continues on.
We're kind of used to at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're eating like Swedish fish.
Oh,
or
it's so good.
anything. Yeah, it's great for you.
Which reminds me, eating sweets at 3 in the morning is paranormal investigations.
Yes.
So this is a good thing. So now the last time we had you on, I think it was a week before you guys had the Paracon, which had how many vendors or how many groups do you think?
My God. We had 38 vendors. We sold that out within a month, and the response was phenomenal. I cannot thank these people enough for their support, and we were able to raise over $1,000 for Foster Parrots, which is an animal shelter for exotic animals, and another $500 for a family who had just lost their son tragically in a car accident. And none of that could be possible without the support that we got from the paranormal community. And I knew it was going to be like that because people really do give of themselves when something like that is offered. So.
Right.
It was phenomenal. Turnout was great. Our speakers were wonderful. You were wonderful. Everybody was wonderful.
Thank you.
The good news is that we'll be doing it again next year.
Great. Now, do you think it's going to be the same location? It was at St. Anne's Cultural Center last year.
I would like it to be, we've got some people saying, well, you should get it bigger because more people want to come. But I think there was something to be said for a more intimate venue because people were able to just kind of move around the room and talk to each other.
Right.
So I don't want to get to the point where we get so big that we become this
You lose focus
big
of it.
entity. I kind of like to keep it local for the people around here, and so we'll probably move in that direction at least for next year again.
Good. Good. Sign me up.
Yeah, I think that it's been the focus to keep it content oriented.
Yeah.
Because we had vendors and we allowed some people to bring in certain merchandise and things like that, but particularly doing it for a charitable cause like we did, just really trying to keep the focus on altruistic, so to speak.
Right. And we also want to keep the focus on local charities as well.
I was just going to ask if it was going to be.
Exactly. So we've got some ideas being given to us next year as far as who we might want to reach out to and help a little bit. So we'll take all that into consideration when we get our Crackerjack board of directors.
Well, I thought it was great, especially at the end when we had the whole panel of guests. I thought that was a great idea.
The panel was great. If anybody would like to see that, you can go to our website and see that, RISEUPParanormal.com. I'm sure we'll be giving that to them later on. But it's also on YouTube, Paracon, and the panel discussion where yourself, Carl and Keith Johnson, Sandra Johnson, Chris Rondina, Tom D'Agostino, and Dina Palazzini, and you know, I know I'm leaving a bunch of people out, and I apologize, Mike Markowitz, Cody Desbians, but it was outstanding, and it exceeded what I expected, but it was exactly what we hoped it would be.
Right,
So
right.
it was
a great
it was
time.
Great.
It really was.
You know, it was great to have these kind of things and hold your breath through the whole thing, but then actually at the end of it, when they turn out pretty well,
Just
you
let
just
it flow.
breathe. So we'll be back next year.
Good, good. So, and of course, you guys will hear about it probably through me, because I always get excited when I have something on my calendar. So, so I'm very excited. So hopefully, I don't know if there's any questions coming in
Not
yet. Okay. Just, you know, cut me off when
Naturally.
yes, that's what we do.
That's
here.
what we do.
Ask questions. Get in the chat room.
I know, I love it. I love it. So now, another reason I wanted to talk to you guys is that over the past few months, you have helped out 2 historical sites that I can name off the top of my head. The Paine House.
Yes.
And also the Nathaniel Greene Homestead.
Yes.
Now, for those of you at home, these guys have been, well, you can actually tell them a little bit about it, but these guys give back, so it's not just for a purpose of paranormal investigation. So how did you, and why? Let me ask you, why did you start to go through historical societies?
For me, it was always a case of, in this economy, a lot of these very historically significant places are finding grant monies and finances that were previously available to them in, you know, very, very, very short these days. You know, it's not as forthcoming to do all this. And some of these locations have some legends attached to them, and some of them embrace those legends. So what we try to do, at first we went to a few places like Fort Adams in Newport, Belcourt Castle, etc. and so forth. Try to do one a year where we can go in, possibly if we find something legitimate there ourselves, to bring the public in and let them go through the process we do. And these aren't, you know, necessarily ghost hunting teams, but the average person who maybe doesn't want to join a group but wants to find out a little bit about what we do. So we've been very fortunate to have places that have embraced those legends and the stories and everything like that. So we bring the public in. Of course, these are all nonprofit organizations.
Right.
So we have people have a chance to go in and investigate and do what we do, and sometimes the results have been pretty great. You know, it's not always that the ghost shows up, but overall, I think people have had a wonderful time at these places. In the case of Nathaniel Greene, no one's ever really gone in there, and I think they saw what we had done and sort of embraced that themselves. So we got a call asking if we'd be willing to go in and do something similar there.
Oh wow! So they came to you.
Yeah. So we are actually familiar with what went on at the greenhouse. They've had a long history of this type of stuff.
I was going to say, wait, don't, I'm going there this week.
No, we're not going to tell you anything. We're telling you
Sorry,
nothing.
guys.
No, we don't mind saying it now because the time has passed. But they were really hush hush at the Homestead for a number of years, and a lot of that, like a lot of these historic locations, understand you get a saturation, and you can't keep tabs on everybody's motivation, who these groups are, what they do, and when you're getting several phone calls a week, it just becomes a bother to certain groups.
Right.
So, you know, we had established a relationship several years ago, but it was very quiet and very reserved. And a gentleman named Richard Simbab, who's become a very good friend of RISEUP, a good patron and a good liaison to us, and he had helped us with several other things too. Prior to this, Fort Adams, he's involved in different historical societies locally. And we were really, really honored when the opportunity came and they had their discussions and they kind of had a changing of the guard over there. and decided that this was a direction they wanted to go in. It was a no-brainer. You know,
Right.
I'm glad it was a no-brainer
Yeah.
for him because he immediately called us, and we couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity.
And
I,
it's been-
I
sorry.
think it's our approach. It's the way we approach this is that we don't want these places to be known as the spooky house down the road because they are very historically significant. But in this day and age, paranormal pop culture and everything like that, it opens up, I don't want to use the word a different audience, but a different kind of demographic, you know, where younger people may come in to check these places out, and while they're there, we'll tell them a lot about the history of the place
Exactly.
as well. So
Whether they like it or not.
whether they like it or not.
But
So
they're going to associate it with a hobby that they enjoy doing.
Exactly.
And that's how.
And if you're not
It's gonna-
careful, you may learn a little something about our past and our history. So it's, I think, the best of both worlds to be able to do something like that. And we're very grateful that we've been given the opportunity to do so many of these places. And we really enjoy it. This is the first year that we're actually letting paranormal groups come in. We're setting aside nights just for them to come in, you know, away from the public, more of a private setting, and give them an opportunity to come in and do some unbiased research on the place and everything. So it's been pretty well received, and we're very happy about it.
I like it. I like it a lot. Now, as far as I know, you've done this throughout the summer, and you're going to continue doing it throughout the summer.
Yep.
Now, is there any talks about doing this kind of stuff in the winter? I know some of those houses may not have heat. Or
Yeah, winter can be pretty difficult, just as it was back then.
Right,
you know.
right.
So a lot of these places, you know, they're not going to stoke fireplaces and things like that. Again, hopefully they raise enough money, maybe they can fire up the oil burner. But for the most part, they do shut down, even on their normal, regular tours. But I guess you never say never.
Exactly.
We'll see what happens there. Bundle up, put your mittens and scarf on, and you know.
Exactly.
No,
I would. Steph would. I know that.
I know you guys would.
a technicality for a lot of these places, because they receive federal and state grants to stay open, they need to give a specific number of tours.
I see.
Whether it's 90, whether it's 120, I don't know what the specific number is for each, but we're also happy to participate in that, in the sense that they open their doors up, and for all intents and purposes, it is a historical guided tour through an active museum.
Right.
You know, we say, oh, haunted Paine House, haunted Nathaniel, Greene. They're both active museums that have Rhode Island, you know, artifacts from Rhode Island history, from King Philip's War all the way to, you know, Civil War and beyond. So it's definitely a step into the past as well.
It's amazing because I had I just started working with the Duxbury Historical Society, and I know I'd mentioned to you guys off camera, but when they bring me to a location, you have this all of a sudden this new appreciation for history. Like you were saying, when you bring the younger kids in, they almost have no choice but to learn more. And it's kind of, as much as I love history, that's kind of how I feel, because as I'm walking around, I have, you know, the Historical Society saying, well, you know, this is from blah, 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 or that is from blah, 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 and you just have this appreciation, and it makes you want to go and give back and help preserve.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
The way we always approached it is that, you know, we've always, you know, done a lot of ghost tours and things. We all have, where we've gone on walking tours. We just wanted to do something different. We didn't want to walk by a house and have someone say, well, and then, you know, there's a woman who appears in the window up
Right.
there, and of course she never shows up, and you're taking pictures and stuff. For us, we asked ourselves what would be interesting, and it would be to go inside the place. So that was always kind of our criteria. We wanted to take people inside and let them see for themselves
Right.
what's going on in there. I think it makes it more interesting for people. And like I say, the only thing that we ask is that there is something with some legitimacy to it. I mean, we've been contacted by other locations that have never had anything going on. It's like, well, maybe could you do one of those for us? And it's just kind of like, well, what exactly would you like us to do?
Right.
It's because we're not going to hide behind doors and knock on walls and things like that. I can't guarantee, you know, a ghost is going to show up, but there needs to be something there that at least is compelling enough to make you want to go in. And that's why we do a lot of investigation of these places first. We'll do a number of them and collect our data. If anything comes through, we might say, well, okay, something is going on there. But we do a lot of historical research just in our basic investigations, so everything kind of fits together. We love it in terms of finding out a little bit more about the families who live there, the location, the town. You know, and it's one of those things where everybody wins, and that's always good.
Right.
Yeah, something else that's made us really happy is both historical societies. Nathaniel Greene Homestead is a private society, just of the Homestead, but and working with Western Rhode Island. But we've really tried to make it affordable. Some of these tours can get a little pricey.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
And I mean, we've seen upwards of $100, you know, $200 for dinner until 3 a.m. And the truth is, we really wanted to give people as genuine an experience as possible. So we, you know, unfortunately, we've sold out for the summer, but that's because we've limited the numbers.
I was just going to ask you, with the limited number, sorry for cutting you off like I do so well.
We take 8 people.
Thank you, that's what I was going to
into the Paine house because, I mean, they have 3 floors and we can kind of isolate everybody. I mean, understand it's not exactly what we do because it is a public event and you kind of have to walk people through it. So, you know, you have to keep people quiet when they're doing something here. So that's always kind of a challenge, but I mean, we do the best we can. I think we do a good job of it. At the greenhouse, we only take 6 because it's 2 floors and we really want to give everybody a good experience in terms of that controlled environment.
And it's the intimacy that I think a lot of people might
is.
get a little, if you've ever, well, I'll just say, sometimes it's better with less people than more people.
It is. I mean, because we've been to a lot of these places where we've sat down and whether it's, you know, a commission, a society, whatever, and had to kind of negotiate that. We've been lucky because they've listened to us. Where we've gone in, as David said, and tried to keep these kind of things affordable for people because, you know, these are the kind of people we hang around with, you know what I mean? The money is hard earned and we want to give them a good experience, but, you know, we're not putting anything in our pockets over this either.
Right.
You know, we're not taking a cut, we're not charging anything. So not only affordable and a good experience, but to try to appeal to as many people as possible to come into these places and just see what they think.
See, I appreciate you guys for doing that because there's a lot of other groups that probably, you know, I don't know, forgive me, I just don't know any other groups that have done this.
Oh, I mean,
So.
there's a lot of this really around the country.
I'm sure around the country, but I'm thinking local.
And a lot do it. I think that you know, we get something out of it too, because not only do we meet the public, but, you know, they find out a little bit about us and who we are, and, you know, it beats putting flyers under people's windshields and things like that. So they get to find out a little bit about us, and yeah, we get cases out of it. We don't talk a lot about our private cases anymore, not the way we used to. They are, and we deal with them, and, you know, that's it. So we don't want to be known as a tour group per se, because we are a legitimate team, but we do have a mechanism in place that any member of RISEUP every single weekend throughout the spring, summer, and fall can involve themselves with something to do with the paranormal. If we don't have a case, we have an event.
I love it.
Yeah,
I know, I see it.
We take a lot of pride in that too. That's
You
the most
should.
difficult thing that, I mean,
It's commitment.
it doesn't get seen a lot, and our people are very gracious, and we've got some of the best people in the world. But it is. It's difficult to stay as busy as we have been, and sometimes we may overextend ourselves a little bit, and it causes some frustration. But the truth is, whether you want to come for a public event or whether or not you want to do an investigation, there's generally something for our members to do on a weekly basis, which is difficult to say. You know,
it is, because it's like I said, it's a huge commitment. Weekends are tough.
And you know, we also take a lot of pride in the fact that we get contacted now more by historical societies, because, you know, they're all kind of tied in a little bit, and people talk, and so it's like, well, maybe you could come to our place and do this. And there's just as many that we don't talk about because we can't, because, you know, I mean, like, again, they don't want to be known as a spooky house. But there's some things going on in there, and it's like, you know, could you guys come in? We talked to the stewards of such and such a place, and they recommended that, you know, you come in, and so it's a little niche we found for ourselves with the historical aspect of it and everything like that. And I couldn't be happier. I know I speak for Dave as well. We couldn't be happier to be involved in that aspect of this, because it's wonderful to kind of help these places go and do a little bit more for themselves, because times are hard for these places, and if people don't reach out and we don't get younger people involved in this to perpetuate it, I'm afraid a lot of these places are just, they're going to go away eventually.
Now, I have to ask you, you guys are featured on my ghost story on the Bio Channel.
I know, it's been, we haven't spoken
I know,
to you
it's been a long time.
It's been almost a year,
Well, it was April, because it was the week before Paracon, so, but it seems like, because there's been so much that's been going on.
Very busy,
But, so, as far as, for all you guys that don't know, there's a show called My Ghost Story on the Bio Channel.
Yes.
So, that document, you guys were at the Paine House for that.
At the Paine House, yeah.
Now, since that episode aired, just out of curiosity, has the members, the curators for the Paine House, have they received more feedback, more calls on people that were curious about maybe coming to the house? Or has it been obnoxious? I'm sorry.
In a word, yes.
Yeah, very much so, because that was kind of the catalyst for it. Because originally what we wanted to do is that everybody gets these emails from all these shows. If you have something, submit it to us, and it was always delete,
They don't
delete,
contact
delete.
you, they contact everybody.
Right. So we had gathered over a full almost 2 years some really remarkable stuff from the Paine House.
Over about 15 investigations worth.
Wow.
We really had. So we said, you know, this would be outstanding for this location, and as much as, you know, you feel we've done for them, they've done as much for us. They've been so gracious and welcoming, and we thought, well, this would be great, you know, because if it's done tastefully and it's done well, this could reflect well on them. So we had offered the trip to the president and vice president of the Paine House, of the Western Rhode Island Historical Society, and they were, you know, I don't want to go. You know, a couple of older women, it's like, I don't go to Ellen. So we were kind of like, well, I guess we're stuck going. Right? You know, free trip to LA. Wow, we're stuck.
And it was in the middle of winter, right?
It was in the middle of winter.
That would have been in your luggage.
We missed the one storm, the one like big storm we had all year. We were in the air during the storm, circling, trying to land in Chicago, trying to get back to Rhode Island with snow on the ground. But it was a great experience. They were extremely professional. Very, 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 very classy operation, and I thought that the edited product reflected very well the Paine House. They were thrilled with it, and it certainly gave them, you know, a reason to walk around with their chests out a little bit. You know what I mean? And that was the really cool part of it, is the way they responded to it. They were so happy with it, and
it gives them a voice.
Yeah, well, people who've spent 15 quiet years, just, you know, going in, doing inventory.
Looking for $1 or $2 in the jar, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It was awesome, and now they're getting coverage in the local papers, and people are coming. And it's all good for them, because now, you know, they're going to re-shingle the house this year and do some of the major work And
Respect
I'm not
shows.
claiming
It's so
we're
good.
responsible. We have a small part of it because they are getting grants for that. But even if it's just a small part of what we do, they're actually structurally putting the work in and the money in.
And I think
that
that's the
was-
best part, is because you're exposing them to a sense where, you know, you're basically helping
Right.
them fund what needs to be done, you know?
Yeah. Well, the one thing to not understate though is, I mean, obviously, as far as Rhode Island historical hauntings, I mean, we've been to some of the major ones in Belcourt and Sprague, and pick up those names and put them in my pocket. But the truth is, Paine House was what it was, and you know, we were allowed to do what we did with My Ghost Story because of the things that happened there, because of the due process.
Right.
And that's the difficult thing. It wasn't a matter of, hey, let's go be on My Ghost Story, or
Right.
let's submit, let's try and get something to submit. It was more, you know, getting the email month after month after month, and we said, you know what, we've really put in our time, and that's something that I can't understate. Is did we put in hundreds of hours and a lot of time between review and between time spent, and that's every member of our group, you know, from the top down, spending hour upon hour building this relationship with not only the people in the house, the historical society, the spirit within, and that's what lent its way to, you know, to being on My Ghost Story.
And I'm glad you put, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I cut him off again, but I'm just glad that you're recognizing that, because I do feel like there's, again, with a lot of the reality TV shows, you know, I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people are in it for the wrong reasons.
As we were
So-
as we were taking off before we got in the air, we were on the ground at TF Greene, and we had said to each other, no matter what happens, the house is the star. You know, and we left with that attitude. The house is the star of this thing, and tell our story and get out of the way.
Right.
So, like I say, the benefits have been that you're reaching a different generation, a different interest of people that are coming in. Yeah, they're interested in the paranormal, but you know what? They're still coming in, and it's amazing, you know, once people get in, they're just looking at the artifacts and around the house and just like, oh my God, wow, this place is beautiful. It's, you know,
Right.
and it's like whatever it is, just kind of bait the hook. Yeah, we're going to show you this, but once you get them in, they have a better appreciation for the whole package.
And yeah, you have to have, like, there's, I don't know anybody who's walked into one of those houses and just kind of looked at it and was like, oh, it's a house. I mean, you have an appreciation no matter what, because
Yeah.
it's
And
history.
it's a payoff. It's a payoff for the hard work for the people who have appointed this house and got all the, you know, the donations, whether it's furniture, clothing, or anything
Right.
like that. You know, that's people can actually see the effort and the time that they
Right.
put into that as well.
Steph, did you have any?
I don't have any questions
okay.
right now, no.
That's fine.
Oh, no questions?
Ken's like, I've been posting. Ask me questions.
We'll have cake then.
I wish
I
wish
don't
we
know
had
what that
cake.
means. I just
We'll have cake and like it.
I wish
Let's
we
let
had
all they-
cake.
let's like okay.
To add to what you guys were saying, though, about walking into a house and not just seeing the house, but seeing the objects, we went to the Paine house, Tiffany and I, May 12th, I think it was.
Yep.
And we did our thing, we read the house, but afterwards, I am the biggest history nerd. Like, I absolutely love history, everything to do with it. I was going around, I
I
remember...
can tell because you've got a great memory for dates, because I don't even remember what month we were there.
Yep. So we were on the second floor, I believe, and I was busy asking all kinds of questions to anybody that would answer me. Like, can you tell me what this is? Can you tell me what that is? What was this used for? And because afterwards, like, I would tell them my impression on it, but I wanted to know if I was right. On top of it, I was really intrigued. I love history, and that house is amazing.
Yeah, that's the great thing, Steph, about a lot of these places is that by being allowed to go inside, you actually walk into a living museum. There are museums
Right.
where you just kind of walk around like this and you look at things like when we were all kids on a
Right.
trip, hands behind your back. But these people have allowed you to go in and actually go into these rooms and kind of just get this feeling from the past. And you can't help, once you put yourself in that, if you just let yourself go for a minute and just take it all in, you can kind of put yourself back in another era.
It's
So,
almost like the people that were there just kind of up and left for you to look through their house. That's what it feels like.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
the great thing. Like at the Greene Homestead, for instance, normally on tours they rope the rooms off where you can come in maybe 3 or 4 feet, and they get rid of that for us, where you can
That's awesome.
enter in a room. And I found that the public has been phenomenal. The paranormal groups we brought in have been phenomenal in terms of the respect that they've shown these places. We've never had an issue, we've never had an incident, we've never had to take anybody aside to have a chat about anything. And I think just walking in, just the ambiance of the place kind of does that to you, just kind of like, okay, I gotta mind my P's and Q's here. But they've been extremely respectful, and because of that, both historic societies they're over the moon about this.
Wow.
And so that's pretty cool.
It is cool.
The thing that always amazes me, you go into both places and you take away the electricity, you take away the juice, and the truth is, beautiful furniture, beautiful, hand-carved mantelpieces, and it's really, I guarantee you do the same thing if you went to some of the old Egyptian,
Oh yeah.
It comes down to you're going to see the human element wherever you go.
Right.
And you're going to see things that are familiar, and it's going to, pretty soon, it becomes home, And in a lot
It's
of
home
ways,
for
these
us.
places have become home for us,
It really has. It's become a second home for all of us. The car just kind of knows where to go at this point now, thankfully.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it because I understand that feeling. I understand that feeling of like appreciation and respect for a home that is, like Steph said, as if the owners just got up and left you with everything of theirs to look after.
And I mean, for the people that are into this type of thing, that aspect of it, as far as evidence in the paranormal, the line of communication that has been established there is, we've caught, I don't say this lightly, we've caught some of the best evidence that we have in the years we've been doing this at the Paine house, and I don't think we were expecting that.
No.
At all when we went. It's just like any other place. It's like, oh, okay, we'll see.
Right, we'll check it out.
We'll see. And from the first night we were there, it's just kind of built up a little bit, and we have people kind of walking out of there now, the public, just like having their own experiences, which is always cool when it's not us and it's them, and that's the really good part when that happens.
Now, another thing I wanted to talk about too, part of paranormal and paranormal investigating is the whole fact of matrixing.
Matrixing is probably the biggest hindrance that we have in this field as far as visual evidence, and I mean, there's also audible matrixing as well, where your mind kind of fills in gaps in audio recordings based on what you expect to hear back. Your mind can actually fill in a word, but there's a lot of that. We've also, people submit pictures, and there's a face in the window, and it turns out the face, in scope of everything else is actually this big, so I don't know, the shrunken head or something. But I think it helps to know what exactly it is we're talking about. And this whole idea of matrixing, pareidolia, really goes back to early man. It was a defense mechanism. It was an early warning system, the ability of the human mind to make sense out of chaotic symbolism. You know what I mean? Whereas early man, you could look in the distance back to the caveman days and recognize a face as a potential threat to you, whether you'd be eaten or they're coming to take your dwelling or your mate or your food or your offspring. And we've kind of retained that ability to kind of distinguish a shape based on things that are familiar to us. And the best way I can give you an example of that is when people look up and see clouds. I mean, intellectually, you know it's a cloud, but if you stare at it long enough, you say, wow, you know, that looks like a horse. You know, so we're all prone to do that. And a lot of photographs that come in, and I say a lot of audio clips. As long as we keep that in mind, that as humans we've evolved and kept that trait to be able to distinguish faces that aren't there, but as a perceived threat, like, you know, that's really where it comes from. As long as we keep that in mind, we can get to the really good evidence and understand that how the mind works on that type of thing.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from as far as matrixing. I remember when I was at Waverly Hills Sanitarium. I don't know if you guys have been there or not.
Not yet. Maybe next year.
No.
Good, I'll go with you guys.
We were talking
I'm
about
just
next
inviting.
year.
Steph and I will come with you guys.
Where?
Cool.
Waverly Hills Sanitarium.
I'll go anywhere that has ghosts.
Well, we were so jealous, not to get off topic, but we were so jealous when you guys were in Philadelphia.
I was going to say, let's talk about that. 'Cause that's what
Don't
they're talking
be.
about
The
here.
investigation was
No.
great. The rest of
Yep.
it was just, wow. Philadelphia is an amazing, beautiful place that I don't want to spend a lot of time.
Really?
No,
Yeah, I'll tell you
really.
that
It's a city, boy. It's a city.
I'm sorry to the Philadelphia Tourist Bureau, but you know, we stayed in downtown Philly and everything was just
Yeah.
kind of like this all the time. Eastern State Penitentiary was great. We were able to go and not do one of these tours, but actually get the prison for ourselves,
See, that's
privately, to go and do what we wanted to do there.
We paid.
that's
we
yeah,
paid.
that's the best way.
You know,
Paid.
But
not
No,
gonna
it's
say
like,
they,
yeah.
not gonna say they
That's-
called. They
They
called us in,
and they
No,
said,
we
we
paid."
want you guys because no one else has been able
you
to
guys gonna
figure
go
it
on my
out.
ghost
It's like,
story
oh,
again
please.
with
You know
Waverly?
what
I mean,
mean?
not Waverly Hills.
Well, it's like going into Paine House,
Yeah.
except on a bigger
Yeah.
scale. So it's like we all, you know, we ponied up the money, we took a flight there and everything
I did
like
that. That's how I got into
Cool.
Waverly Hills.
Once
is
in
I,
a lifetime.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly. So
Sometimes
it was
you
a
have
great
to have
time.
the fun, too.
Right, you have
Oh,
to. And
yeah.
I'll never
And-
regret going. That's why I'm like, I'll go back again.
And we ended up in finally leaving the city and driving out to the country, up to Quaker country, and we stayed at a place called the Bucksville House. So we were able to reserve that whole bed and breakfast, one of America's
Oh,
most
wow.
haunted inns. And some of you viewers might remember it on the old Psychic Kids, Children of the
yes,
Paranormal.
yes.
That was the backdrop for one of their retreats that Chip Coffey took the kids on, which is the first we ever heard of the Bucksville House. We went up there, Bob and Joe Zalossi are the owners. If anybody has a chance to go, you got to go once, because they're just the nicest people. It's the most beautiful place in the country. And some of the stories that have come out of there, it is one of America's most haunted inns. There's no question about it. So it was a great trip.
How many did you guys take? How many people?
Oh, we had 13 people at Eastern State, which is just like a drop in a bucket, because the
Right.
place is just
Right.
so immense that we didn't see each other other than when we went back to the main rotunda to kind of hook up again with each other. The Bucksville House, I think we had 8 or 9 of us continued on. So
Yeah, 8 of us.
right, so we had all the rooms there. And it was great. We were able to do an overnight investigation there again. So we went up with some of the members of the TAPS home team. They joined us at Eastern State and then went on to Bucksville House. So it was a nice vacation. It was a nice working vacation.
See, but
It was
it's not
cool.
even working because it's what you're passionate about. You know.
No, it was really neat. And again, you know, a lot of history involved in both places. So, you know, it was a good trip. One that Julie and Wendy from our group put this together, so all the kudos to them. They did all the
Yeah.
legwork and the phone calls and the flights and everything like that.
I'm gonna be sending Julie a little email when I
for
get
any-
home.
Yeah, I'm
like,
telling
next
you.
trip, let
She's
us
the one-
know.
Anybody-
she's the one to talk to.
For anybody who's ever traveled in a group, even if they're people that you know very intimately, it's just different personalities and getting
Yeah.
everybody on schedule. And I mean, it's not easy. So yeah, definitely kudos to them for making it all
But
happen.
it's an experience. Like I was going to say with Waverly Hills, when you guys go, because I know you'll go, yeah, I'll be there too. But the halls just go for miles upon miles. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but it's a humongous place. So when you're standing in a hall, just looking down, it's so easy for your eyes to just matrix and think you see a shadow
Right.
moving back and forth.
Well,
and that's one of their claims. Is
the
that
thing
there's
is,
a
the way
shadow figure.
the mind works, even in a dark room, you know, it's like, well, you investigate at night, but you got to understand, we're susceptible to misidentifying things because it's dark. We don't see well in the dark. So the mind, if you see something that looks like a head and shoulders, our mind sometimes will actually add arms and legs to it, where you'll see a figure. I mean, it actually will, because you're expecting something and your mind kind of gives that to you. So all of a sudden it's like, I saw an arm do this and that and the other thing, and actually it's another, it is another form of matrixing. And again, you know, as long as it's one of those things that it's easier said than done, but you just have to keep that in the back of your mind to, you know, cut through, you know, I guess your mind playing tricks on you is, you know, the best way to put it.
Right. Now, is matrixing and pareidolia the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
As well as
What? Apophenia?
apophenia.
Yeah, apophenia is like
They're all synonyms?
pareidolia refers more to patterns,
Okay.
things that are pattern oriented, and then you continue in the pattern even though there's a change. Apophenia is more man in the moon. What we're talking about with clouds and things like that. That's
Okay.
more apophenia, because that's more
Things that you want to see.
it's more
more
visual.
so.
It's just
Well,
more.
think in terms of Rorschach blots. Psychiatrists give you, it's like an ink
Yes,
blot.
yeah.
Tell me what you see. It's just absolutely random ink blot on a paper, and people will look at that and go, oh, you know, I see a butterfly or something like that, and I'm not going to pretend to know what it is they're looking for, but they can tell something about you
Right, by what it is.
the way you think. Interestingly enough, we found out that in Rorschach tests, adults tend to see faces and children tend to see animals.
Really?
In Rorschach blots, yeah. I think it's just because of that. The whole idea of matrixing is that you're looking at something that's familiar to you. You're drawing on the memory banks, whereas adults maybe have more life experiences than children do.
True. Yeah.
So they
that's a
tend to
good-
think in
good
terms
take.
of animals and things like that.
I'd like to have that done. I'd like to try to do that and see what kind of analysis they come up with me.
It's all butterflies.
Butterflies
All
and
of them are butterflies.
All butterflies all the time.
You know, I think that the big thing we're pushing towards, and whether you're talking about apophenia, pareidolia, whatever grand term you wanna stick on it, none of us are clinical psychologists. We're one of the few groups who's lucky to have a consultant who is. But the reality of it is, it does take the perspective. We all share the same sorts of perception, just based on the instruments,
right.
the physical body, the tools, so to
Right,
speak.
right.
But beyond that, every human being in every given circumstance is forced by nature, by consciousness, to linguistically get out what it is they're seeing. So there's the problem, I think, with a lot of things, and even when we're talking about mediums and empirical groups, or whether you're a scientific investigator or a spiritualistic investigator, I think it's really a language barrier. We're talking about the same things, we're just using we're not speaking two different languages, but we're just using different terminology.
Yeah.
And this even goes with certain religious aspects of it as well, but you know, we're talking about the same things.
Right.
We're just putting it in a particular perspective to try and communicate whatever message that we have as a group or individuals, you know. So I think once we get over, I think that's a major barrier in the field. Once we can get over that and we can try and strike out a common language, I think we'll be better off for it. We'll start to see that the psychic and the documentation, empirical investigation are really two sides of the same coin. You know, it's heads, it's tails, but it's all one quarter.
Now, do you think a lot of groups are leaning towards that way now?
I have a hard time with that because I think that the rift is in our own...
There's always a rift, unfortunately.
The rift is in our own mind, and it's a part of our culture, I think. I think that we're driven to choose between one or the other. You know, do you believe in the psychical realm, or do you believe in the physical science? And the truth is, we didn't always have to do that. Once upon a time, you go back to even 1940s, 1950s. I mean, you see some of the greatest physicists and you know, biologists, natural scientists, psychologists. They were all curious. They were all interested in ESP and ghosts and hauntings, and there was a really big academic push towards it. I think what's happened nowadays is because the layman has taken to this hobby, because there are so many of us out here doing this right now, that I think a lot of people who, I'll be honest, a little uppity,
right,
but they are driven away by this because they see the threat of, oh, I have 2 PhDs and I can't prove ghosts exist, but meanwhile, you know, Joe so-and-so who drives a truck from New Jersey has got this unbelievable evidence, you know, just from going to being in the right place at the right time.
Right. I think you're always going to be at some type of odds over that, and I think it's inevitable. But I think it's kind of split down the middle a little bit. You know, there's some people who don't want to hear it, and there are just as many groups who, employ the use of a sensitive within that group. So I don't know. I mean, the jury's still out. I guess it all comes down to, you know, how you as an individual or you as a group feel that whatever your approach needs to be,
right,
on something like that. So
what are you looking for? And the other half of it is be honest about what you're getting.
I think that's the hardest part.
There's a lot of wish fulfillment,
yeah,
and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The truth is, more than any other time that I'm just saying, I'm 27. I can't speak for all time, but it just seems like more so than other times, it's very personal. It's a very personal question of my spirit, my personality, my being, where in other cultures it's not even a question of it. It's more communal.
It's kind of like people will project themselves onto a situation in order to validate the time they're spending in it. You know, like when people say, well, ghosts feel this way, ghosts act this way, ghosts think that way. It's like, how do you know that again?
Right, right.
But I think that they kind of pick and choose what they want. And I really don't mean this as like a criticism, but a lot of people will not go that extra route or that extra mile to to do anything but validate their own time that they're putting into it. I have to get something out of this, and this is where the orbs come from, and this is where the the sounds that don't really say anything, but people hear certain things in them and things like that. So again, pareidolia, the matrixing and stuff like that. Got to kind of move past that and understand that something is there or it's not there. And if there's a rational explanation for it, whether we like it or not, we have to entertain it. We have to at least entertain it.
Yeah, it's tough out there, I'm telling you.
Yeah, oh, it is.
It really is.
If someone posts a picture and says, well, what do you think of this picture? And you just say, well, I think it's a reflection and the digital camera and the flash and everything like that. I mean, you're trying to be constructive about it, but, more often than not, you'll probably end up in some kind of an argument about it. It's just well, don't ask me that.
Well, that's difficult too with what we do. Is we are our own judge, jury, and executioners, and as time goes by, and I'm hoping to be doing this, God willing, in 50 years. hope to be in my 70s, looking back and saying, man, look at all the stuff that's gone on over the past 50 years. I think we're our biggest enemy. The more we try to fulfill our own wishes, rather than just gauge the evidence, take the temperature, weigh it, blind scale of justice, just weigh the evidence.
Right.
I think the truth is, and the more experience we do with this, the more we do that, the more success we have, and the more gratifying it is. And it comes down to, I remember getting some of our earliest, voice phenomena and things like that, and it was like emotional, because it was like, oh my God, there's something to this, there's something trying to communicate.
Right.
And I think that that's the message that we will get in the end, as long as we're honest with ourselves. I think that we will find that the Spirit is coming through. Spirit is trying to communicate. It may not always be in the way that people think it is. It may not be, hi, my name is this. But I think if you have the ability to read a situation, to analyze a haunting, rather than just try and capture evidence, can you profile a haunting? Can you analyze not only what's going on activity-wise, but what is going on with these people? What message? And that's where we've had our talks, and that's why I like using you girls when we have the opportunity and the time comes, because like I said, I'm not so much interested in, I want a name and a date and an occupation. I want emotional content. I want to know, are these people happy? Are they upset? Is there something that the owners of the house are currently doing to upset the balance?
We've always had a mantra of, we don't find evidence, it finds us.
Right.
Because most of the people who have these experiences aren't looking for ghosts. They're going about their everyday routines, and then something remarkable happens. So this is kind of the way we want to interject ourselves into an investigation, not a bias one way or the other, as hardcore skeptics or hardcore believers, but just to go in and observe, document, and try not to draw any conclusions until the process plays out.
But I also realize and feel that if you go into a place and you already have that sense of respect for the place, there's no need to provoke or anything. I feel you're going to get more of a return, or more of maybe a connection with someone that's passed, is if you go and you are yourself, just like you said. Like if you try to repeat what they did, or I'm just not a huge fan of provoking.
I think we've probably been in a situation where we took a more aggressive posture less than a handful of times. To be
I
quite
wouldn't even
honest with
say
you.
5 times in 8 years.
No.
And those are more family-oriented situations.
Right.
I was going to say it was all at Eastern Penn, right? I'm kidding.
I think that, and I'll just throw this out there. I've got no problem saying it, but aside for a handful of serious situations where we're looking for a response more to outsource, because we know we're dealing with something that may be a little bit beyond the paranormal, something that is bordering on negative spiritual. And those rare, like we said, maybe 3 cases over 8 years, we're looking to get the response not for our own benefit, to say, oh, we got something on camera.
Right.
It's more because we may need to go to clergy, we may need to contact somebody like Carl or Keith and Sandra at New England Anomalies, or just somebody who's got a background in dealing with negative cases.
Right.
I hate to use the D word, which is demonologist, because there's you can get certificates for demonology online for $20 a pop.
I mean, legitimately, we've probably in 7 years done, a couple 300 cases or whatever. I don't know. I don't. In case you're scoring at home, I don't have a scorecard. I have no idea, and I don't think we've ever encountered anything like that. I mean, the law of averages would probably be like somewhere along the line, but people will say, well, you probably have, you just didn't recognize it. It's
recognize some psychological issues.
According to the standard definition of that type of haunting, they're not going to care what we think.
Right.
You're going to feel oppression and attacks and psychic attacks and all of the things, and I think we've been in the presence of some aggressive entities, but I don't know, maybe it's next week. Maybe it's right
But
around
no,
the
I mean,
corner,
I hear
but
ya.
I mean, I'm not. I believe that there's inherent evil out there, but I think that we do more evil to each other.
Right.
And I know that people would disagree with me, but I don't know. Maybe, like I say, it's right around the corner. But to this point, it's all about respect, and that seems to have worked well. So if it ain't broke,
Exactly.
if it ain't broke, we're not going to fix it.
I think generally, I don't mind saying it, being forward, but I think as a general investigative tool to use on a weekly basis, provocation is something that people who aren't creative enough to, or not thorough enough to do research, that they use that as a way to empower themselves. I feel good. I'm strong. I'm strong here. I'm the powerful one in the room. But the truth of the matter is, in most cases, you're being a tough guy to nothing. You are in an empty room
By yourself.
and you're blah 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 blah. And the other part of it is, there's no doubt that there's a correlation between doing good historical research and gearing your questions towards those people.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way: if I could make one generalization, like one theory of 8 years of research, it would be: if you are polite and you treat the supposed entity or potential entity with the sort of respect that you treat an elder or a grandparent or a parent, and just speak to them, they're the ancients. Those are our ancestors.
Right.
You're going to get better results. There's no doubt about it.
And I agree with you 100%. I really do. I really do. I don't think I've ever come across anything that was completely negative, or, because I go in, and so does Steph, we go in with a form of the respect, and we set our intentions, and I'll just speak for myself. I know I have never dealt with anything demonic.
I don't feel we have, and a lot of that seems to be a standard question. And like a lot of, you do radio shows, and have you ever encountered something demonic? I don't know how they're responding on the other end, but my response is usually, I just don't believe we have. And I don't know if they're gasping on the other end, because I know that maybe we're not being edgy about it, but I'm just being honest. I've never walked out of a place bruised, or, not from anything, maybe from tripping on something.
Right.
Hitting your head
Hitting my head on something.
Which is common. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up. But I want to thank you guys for coming on. I'm surprised the chat room, we didn't have anything.
We had a couple, but
Oh.
You push right through them.
I can answer them after the show and put the answers in
Oh,
there.
you should have told us. Do you have anything quick last?
It's nothing pertaining to what we talked about, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's a secret question. But I do want to thank you guys very much for coming on again.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
And I can't wait
Anytime.
to visit the Nathaniel Greene Homestead this weekend.
We'll see you Saturday night.
Yes. And for all of you guys at home that are looking to check out these locations, you can go to RISEUPParanormal.com.
That's it.
And also on Facebook, it's Rise Up Paranormal. Right? Just Rise Up.
Just look it up.
Rise Up Paranormal. And you can
We're
always
there.
contact me, and I can get you involved with these guys too. So thank you so much for, again, coming on. I'm sure I'm going to have you guys on probably
Thank
soon.
you,
Staff, we appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. Anytime.
We're always learning something new, So that's why. But thank you, and thank you for doing what you do as far as helping in the preservation of the historical houses.
That is definitely our pleasure.
Because that's what it's about.
And it's really about them, and we're just very lucky.
Yeah.
Very lucky to be able to do
We're
that.
flies on the wall for a little,
That's it.
for a
I love
small
it, though.
time,
That's it. Exactly.
Well, thank you. And guys, we will see you next week. We're going to have Robin Curtin on. She's going to be talking about Mercury in retrograde and how annoying it is. Only a couple more weeks. But I will see you guys next Tuesday night. Thank you.